It was notices to airmen, then it was notices to air mission, then it was notices to airmen again. And if that wasn't confusing enough, the FAA is about to change it. Check this out. Pat Brown, there is a thing in aviation known as a NOTAM, and it confuses some people because it was notice to airmen, then it was notice to air mission, and now it's notice to airmen again. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but here's a little tidbit that is factually incorrect because I just made it up myself. The first NOTAM ever issued came from a guy named Bob Smith, who was a mechanic working with Glenn Curtis, who said, hey, you know that barn on the other side of the ridge line that you used to know when to turn? That burned down. You got to find a new place.
That was the first one, huh?
That was the first. But of course, the NOTAMs were intended to be information that was of use to pilots about navigational aids that were out or runways that were closed, or a variety of things. And over time, mission creep being what it is, it has become this unbelievably voluminous pile of largely useless information that is really hard to wade through. And since you're the guy with the big brain, let's talk about there's more than one kind of NOTAM, and it's just become this big mess. So personally, I'm really glad they're going to revise this.
Yeah, me too. I'm sure everybody that is watching this has seen a NOTAM or two or 100 that they look at and scratch their head and say, "What the heck does this mean?" It has happened to me many, many, many times, and read it back again and say, it's even less clear now the second read. It's not, they're not very clear. There are every year, Jamie, about 4 million NOTAMs are issued. That boggles the mind. 4 million NOTAMs. How many of them are the kind of information you can't live without?
This would be an awesome opportunity for you to go ahead and click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment on this. And of course, because you're a caring individual dedicated to general aviation, you might even want to share this on your social media so your pilot friends know about a NOTAM change coming as well. Well, I got
Don't
to
know.
admit, I've gotten the briefings. I call up for the standard briefing, and the poor guy's like, I've got this list of anti-collision lights that are out, and it's daytime in Florida. Do you need that?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, no, I really don't need that. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. There are I think different types of NOTAMs. We'll talk about a few of them here. There's no reason to go through some of them because they're so obscure that you'll never see them. But standard run-of-the-mill NOTAMs like NOTAM Ds, for example, that cover things at your local airport or the airport that you're going to be flying to. Things like taxiway closures, maybe a rotating beacon is burned out. Information that is important. Um, may not affect the safety of flight, but it certainly would be helpful to know that if you're flying into a towered airport and there's a bunch of a bunch of taxiway construction going, that that taxiway that you always take to get to the FBO may not be open to you. I mean, those kinds of things are really kind of important. So
And for those of us of a certain heritage or age or whatever the right term is, I don't know. That's actually a compilation of what used to be L NOTAMs
yeah,
and D NOTAMs, which a number of years ago they said that's too confusing. The locals in the distance. Let's just put them together.
yeah,
So this again, we're dealing with something. This is not radical. The fact
yeah,
that they're going to reform this,
yeah,
it's just the fact that, as you say, with 4 million NOTAMs a year,
yeah.
maybe we could weed that out a bit.
Yeah, another one, and this is one actually I ask about this on almost every check ride I do. So, hint to anybody that might have a check ride scheduled with me coming up at some point in the future, you might want to listen. Um, FDC NOTAMs. FDC stands for Flight Data Center. Not that it's important to know what that acronym stands for. Speaking of acronyms, but it stands for Flight Data Center. That's who issues them. But FDC NOTAMs, if you look in AIM, it says when it becomes necessary to disseminate information that is regulatory in nature, and that's a direct quote out of the AIM. When it becomes
Mhm.
necessary to disseminate information that is regulatory in nature, stop right there. Regulatory in nature. Those three words tell you exactly what the importance of an FDC NOTAM is. It's regulatory. There is a change in airspace, and it's not necessarily just a change in like a crossing altitude or a fix on an instrument approach or something like that. It can be a change in airspace. Maybe Class Echo airspace has gone from 1200 down to 700, or vice versa. Maybe there's new Class Echo to the surface airspace around an airport. And one of our local airports here several years ago, um, they started out as a non-towered field in Class G airspace. The owner wanted to put a control tower in there because he wanted to attract corporate airplanes, and they wouldn't come in without a control tower. So he bought a control tower, plopped it down in his airport, and poof, he's got a towered field in Class G airspace. The regs say that you have to treat that as a Class Delta airspace. But
Mhm.
how do you know that it all of a sudden has a control tower because it was in between chart cycles and the airport symbol was still magenta? An FDC NOTAM. And then years later, when they got the Class Delta um, um, classification around that airport, it was still showing a magenta circle. Excuse me, they had switched it to a blue circle, a blue airport symbol, but there was no dash line around it. When they got the dash line, it was in between chart cycles again. So how do
Mhm.
people know that it was now a Delta airport until the next chart came out? An FDC NOTAM.
That's
So
kind of the thing with an FTC NOTAM. It's a cheat sheet. It's telling you that your VFR sectional chart's going to look different the next issuance, and it's going to have this in it. But be aware of that because it's active now, even
it's
though it's
active
not
now.
on the chart.
Yeah. So TFRs, things like that, are all subject to being you're subject to being notified by FDC NOTAM with TFRs and those kinds of things. But it's basically an outline. The outline changes to instrument procedures and airways, and but it's not just that. It's really anything that could be construed as a major change that would affect you from a regulatory standpoint. So sometimes if you're looking at FTC NOTAMs, it may stop with the description about IFR changes. That's only partially true. So those are really the two in my mind anyway. Those are really kind of the two big ones.
I do want to query your massive brain though, if you don't mind, because one of the NOTAMs that has always entertained me is called a pointer NOTAM.
Yes.
And it's a NOTAM that tells you to look at another NOTAM.
Yeah. That was actually next on my list was the pointer NOTAM.
That one always cracked me up, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are others too that you see less often. There's a SAA, and SAA stands for Special Activity Airspace NOTAM. There are NOTAMs called U or Uniform NOTAMs, and they're kind of subparts to the NOTAM Ds. There are O NOTAMs, Oscar NOTAMs. Again, part of NOTAM Ds, but they're kind of when they don't fit into the criteria of a NOTAM D. And of course, we have military NOTAMs too. But for at least for me, and I would invite anyone who disagrees, absolutely disagree. But to me, the big ones are the just the general NOTAM, like a NOTAM D, which talks to us about the terminal area conditions that we're going to be taking off from or landing at, and FDC NOTAMs.
And some of these can be really, really useful information about things that aren't working or they're not functional at the time, or there's a crane in line with the runway. I mean,
Yes.
those things are real.
Yeah.
But just to make the point clear, this is not a theoretical thing. The FAA is actually working on this now. They've contracted with a private company. This will be deployed this year, or at least it's scheduled to be deployed later this year. So anyone who flies can actually, within a few months of seeing this video, say, there's going to be a change to the NOTAMs. I probably want to keep an eye out for some news item on that because it is coming.
Yeah, there's a company called CGI Federal Inc. CGI Federal Inc. that the FAA has contracted with. And this system is expected to be delivered to the FAA in July of 2025. So, from when we're recording this, which
Just a
is
couple
in,
months.
yeah, a couple of months from now, and deployment to all of us, you know, pilots is scheduled for September of 2025. So we'll see if they hit those targets. It's a pretty aggressive, ambitious set of dates, but it's woefully overdue to be done. So I'm really pulling for the FAA on this one. I haven't seen, and nobody that I know of anyway has seen what the proposed format will look like. So I hope that it is in fact an improvement where they're using words that all of us can understand.
Yeah, some of those abbreviations are a little weird.
Yeah, yeah. But more importantly, not only words that we can understand, but words in that are put together in a combination of words in such a way that they make some sense. Because
Absolutely.
that doesn't always happen either. So the two dates for anybody watching the two dates to watch out for would be July of 2025 and September of 2025. And join us by crossing our fingers and all of our other appendages and hoping that they hit these dates and that it's cracked up to be. I really do hope that it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. They can be so useful. So I'm hoping that it's a simpler, easier to use system that we all benefit from.
Yep.
Pat, thank you very much. I think this is the kind of thing that people actually have to be aware of because it is a change that will affect us. And if you're going to pretend that you got a real briefing, not knowing what the NOTAMs are, no, you didn't.
Yeah, and you remember, and there's that one pesky little regulation that says you have to make yourself aware of all available information, and that's a quote as well, all available information. So, not having NOTAMs, no excuse for that.
All we got to know is everything. How hard is that?
Ain't that the truth?
Pat, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'm going to come back here next week. I'm going to do another one of these. I hope you're going to be there with me because this is just too much fun to skip a week.
Twist my arm, pal. I'll be here.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Adios.